I want to talk about Morgan and Carol just for a minute. I kind of like the dynamic of Carol and Morgan, the conversations they were having. You know, Morgan talking about, yes, all life is precious. Carol, you don't want to do this. You want to come back with us. You don't want to be on your own. And Carol basically points a gun at his face and says, leave me alone. Go back home. I don't want any part of you. Leave me, let me be. So then Carol gets confronted with the gentleman who we saw in the last episode. He was one of the saviors that Carol, when Carol confronted them in the middle of the road and she took them all out and he got away. Well, he catches up with her and threatens to kill her and wants to watch her bleed out. And then Morgan just comes up and just murks him cold. And I'm like, well, okay, Morgan, seems like you've made your decision. Now, if that's the line you're going to cross, then let's stay there. And let's realize that, okay, you made that decision. It does not make you a bad person given the circumstances. I just hope the writers don't vacillate between Morgan being like a second-rate Gabriel. And that's another character who looks like he's made a decision as well. And I applaud that. I finally applaud Gabriel as a character. So Morgan, come on, man. Let's make a decision. I think you're on the right path. It's okay that you kill because look at the world you're living in. But here's the biggest problem I had with last night's episode, even though I thought it was fantastic. For those of you who read the comics, we all know that Glenn is the one who gets the bat to the head. And they kind of teased that in season 5, I want to say, with Terminus, where Glenn was about to take a bat to the back of his skull. Well, in the book, Negan monologues just like we see last night. He picks Glenn. He does the eeny, meeny, miny, mo, picks Glenn. And he has Glenn step out and fall back to his knees. And Glenn makes a last-minute plea for his life to Negan, saying that you don't have to do this. And Negan, of course, disregards that and goes Al Capone to the back of the head with Lucille. Seeing those panels in the book, I think the tragedy and the angst of seeing Glenn killed at Negan's hands, it earns our despair, our sadness, because we've become attached to Glenn, having read the comics and becoming invested in his character for so long. Well, the same goes for the TV show, even with the characters that don't appear in the comics. I'm completely invested in each and every one of these characters, even Gabriel at this point. So I really thought that it was a cheap shot to a certain degree, that the way they handled the aspects of the cliffhanger of this episode, in other words, you know, not seeing who Negan chooses and not having that last minute plea and then just cutting to black and that's the end of the episode. And we have, 6 months, 7 months to wait to find out who got it. I think that's the wrong tone to set for those of us who have been watching this for so long and we're so invested. When it's revealed who was killed, there's not going to be any emotional empathy, I don't think. At least not what should have been built up over the 6 months. The next 6 months is going to be conjecture. It's going to be more of a lottery than quote unquote mourning or grieving a character that we've been so invested in. In the book, as Negan is pummeling Glenn with Lucille, he's talking and making wisecracks, and that creates an even larger visceral reaction from the audience, or the reader in that case, that Negan is not one to be with, and he's somewhat of an asshole. Here, cutting to the POV and then doing a blur on it and slowly going to black as we hear the bat hit the head of whomever it is, there's no payoff there. They won't have earned our grief, our mourning. It'll just be the character was so indispensable that they didn't deserve a more fitting death that we could grieve. And I feel like whichever character it was, that character deserved to have his or her last words before cutting to POV and then ultimately cutting to black. I think it's disrespectful to all the characters who have gone through so much and that we've become invested in. And I believe my fellow viewers at Amalgam Comics Shop, I believe they would agree with me as well, as we all just turned and looked at each other like, you've got to be kidding me. Even though the episode was a slow burn even though there wasn't much action, the last half hour and the build up to that last half hour earned this episode 4.5 out of 5 reels. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Leave some comments below. Tell me if you agree with me, disagree with me, if you were cool with it cutting to black on its Soprano style kind of conclusion. But hey, it's going to be a long 6 months. And to be honest, I'm going to need about that much time to compose myself after seeing that finale. And that's the Martini. And if you like what you see, please subscribe.